RFK is unqualified, and the person he's hiring to do this study not only is unqualified, but is a fraud, a massive fraud. The studies by Geier and Geier here have serious methodological flaws, and their analytic methods were non-transparent, making their results uninterpretable and therefore non-contributory with respect to causality. Scientists are literally saying, like, we can't even read this shit. They're not backing up anything. It's almost like they're hiding it. Like this is like a mystery novel. We talked about RFK last week. One of the hardest parts about covering this administration is that it's hard to give equal time to all the things that are important. It's hard to give enough time to all the things that are important. Like last week, RFK basically said that we need to eliminate autistic people. And I don't mean that in a way like he said we're going to round them up, but maybe it'll come to that. We'll see. But he demonized a lot of people. He upset a lot of parents. And then he hired David Geier to run the study. And the study is like, by September, we're going to know what causes autism, which is just like not even good code. Just saying like, hey, in September, we're going to release something that says vaccines cause autism. We've already got it planned. We just need until September to make our most compelling case. Remember that RFK is a litigator. And RFK has made most of his money suing big organizations, specifically pharmaceutical companies. RFK, one of the questions that he was asked in his confirmation hearing that at the time I wasn't that worried about, but now looking back, it was a good question, and maybe some of these people in Congress have more foresight than we do. But basically, he was asked if he would take himself out of the running once he left office as HHS secretary and not sue these drug companies. Like, let somebody else do it. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. What I think RFK is doing, if we're being honest, because I think that Republicans, we've got to be able to agree on some shit. We either agree that like everybody in Congress should be looked at through the lens of us being suspicious or not. But it can't be partisan. So if we're going to say that we all agree, and I think just like generically we'd all say, we agree that a significant amount of people, a majority, large majority, whatever number we wanted to land on, I think most of us would agree that a significant amount of people that are in the federal government are just there to do things that benefit themselves. RFK is setting himself up. RFK, what he can do now, and this is just a guess, but if RFK goes through with his plan and in September, he makes an announcement with David Geier and he says, hey, we're going to show you the links between vaccines and autism. Essentially what he's doing is discovery. And he's doing discovery and he gets to put the stamp of the United States government on top of that discovery. And so when he leaves office and he goes to sue these drug companies for causing autism, which is exactly what he's going to do, he's going to go out and he's going to try and get a settlement. And he's going to say, look, even our federal government agrees with me. Our federal government has decided the vaccines cause autism. Therefore, I now have a stronger standing to sue these vaccine manufacturers. I think that's what he's doing. And I think that's the only reason why you would hire somebody like David Geier. This is a TikToker named Perez Brenas. I assume it's Brenna Perez. Breaking down who David Geier is. This is the best one I've seen. And shout out TikTok for regularly having the best breakdowns I find. And shout out B for helping me find this stuff.
Autism solution wasn't just experimenting illegally on autistic kids, he was actually chemically castrating them. I was looking through the Maryland Medical Board's disciplinary documents, and they're not great. There were multiple cases brought to and decided on by the board, so I'm going to be reading from...
I might have cut off the beginning. This is about David Geier. That's the person that's responsible for putting this study together that we'll have a conclusion for in September.
Of these documents. And just a reminder that we're talking about David Geier, the guy RFK Jr. tapped to basically solve autism, who's caught practicing medicine without a license, and former Dr. Mark Geier, his father, whose medical license was taken away. Number one is the case against David Geier, where he's accused of practicing without a license. And these findings actually reveal a lot of how they operated. The Geiers were found to have owned and operated several organizations, among those ASD Centers LLC. A snapshot of the website shows that they advertised as a place, quote, where medical solutions for autism can be found. Medical and solutions being interesting word choices, in my opinion. The website listed multiple locations, including several that suggested that ASD Centers LLC was either operating as genetic consultants of blank, or there was some sort of partnership. It appears that Genetic Centers of America was former Dr. Mark Geier's clinical practice. Mark Geier, in one of the cases against him, by the way, was found to have falsely claimed that he was a board-certified epidemiologist and geneticist, when in reality, at most, he was a genetic counselor. So he was...
So, how's that not disqualifying in and of itself right there? This person, multiple times in court documents, has claimed to have expertise that they don't have. I don't remember if she even gets to this. Multiple times, studies have been, I don't even know if debunked, but the data that he provides is not scientifically backed. Like, nobody even takes this guy seriously. And this is who we have that's in September is going to roll out and tell a bunch of our conservative friends and your granola moms, yep, vaccines cause autism, and millions of people are just going to buy it. Millions of people are just going to be like, cool.
Was in fact not actually qualified to evaluate patients for genetic conditions with absolutely zero expertise in autism. I do find their attempt to link their ASD practice to a genetics practice interesting, since they do claim that the cause is something else. However, it's not surprising when you consider that their proposed solution is in fact chemical castration. Oh, and by the way, David Geier never even went to medical school. He has a BA. I have a BA. Another interesting thing, they claimed to donate a significant portion of all their revenues to the Institute of Chronic Illnesses, Inc. and COMED, Inc., both of which they own. Just spread misinformation. The Geiers really tried to blur the lines on who was doing what. While he claims that he would just sit in the room while his dad was practicing the medicine,
I think it's also, I think it's relevant to point out that both of the places where they donated money and are Incs. They are Incs. They're not LLCs. They're not nonprofits. They are for-profit organizations. Explain to me why we have for-profit organizations that are doing this research, and RFK is like, yeah, that's definitely what we should do. There's definitely not going to be any conflict of interest here. Everybody's going to believe that somebody who has been doing this for years for profit is going to give us an answer that might go against their own research. I don't think so. This creator is Brenna Perez. It's Perez Brenna, or at Perez Brenna on TikTok.
That he actually met with the patients and parents alone and discussed the course of treatment with them.
She's talking about George Santos. We'll get to Santos in a minute. No, talking about David Geier. David Geier is the person that RFK has slotted to run this vaccine autism link study.
Some of the evaluations himself, clearly making impossible evaluations and statements that are inching them towards the diagnosis that they want to impose on this kid. He also scored the assessments, ordered tests, typed medical documents. Also, in some places where Mark Geier had supposedly signed documents, apparently the D in doctor had an uncanny resemblance to the D in David Geier when he signed. Even if David Geier's claims are true and he never actually did any of the doctoring, it's clear that this practice was a team effort. And I want you to keep that in mind, because that means that according to his own words, he was often in the room when his father did what he did. Things that the Maryland board found that Dr. Mark Geier did are frankly disgusting. I can only give you a summary, but trust me when I say that if you look at the details of each individual case, it feels a lot like abuse. The board essentially evaluated 9 specific patient cases. The children were subjected to treatment in 7 of the 9 cases that were reviewed. In 2005, the dynamic duo published an article making claims that were summarily rejected by actual science.
Science says no. You understand who we're dealing with? Like, this is who we're dealing with in this administration. This is what I'm very, very nervous about, is that if you agree with something that scientifically isn't backed, that's good enough. This is the person that's responsible for making decisions about grants for research. This is the person who's responsible for giving money to people who will develop future drugs. And not only RFK is unqualified, and the person he's hiring to do this study not only is unqualified, but is a fraud, a massive fraud. The studies by Geier and Geier here have serious methodological flaws, and their analytic methods were non-transparent, making their results uninterpretable and therefore non-contributory with respect to causality. Scientists are literally saying, like, we can't even read this shit. They're not backing up anything. It's almost like they're hiding it. Like this is like a mystery novel.
Section of their claims and findings, because of their methodology and completely non-transparent methods, they decided to develop a treatment protocol based on their own debunked claims that included Lupron, administered with daily subcutaneous injections, usually by a parent, and bi-weekly intramuscular ones that they got to give. They also used a sham review board, members of which were the dynamic duo and Mama Geier, which doesn't even meet the requirement of...
So in their board, the guy running the study, his dad and his mom. That's who's reviewing it. Mom and Dad, can you please check my work? Oh, you did great, son.
members, let alone avoid the conflict of interest. Essentially, the pattern is this. A child who is diagnosed with autism by real medical professionals is brought into their practice by a parent who wants their autism, quote unquote, treated. The lack of credentials is not made clear. They are, quote unquote, evaluated and then purposefully misdiagnosed, usually with some combination of an unspecified developmental delay, heavy metal exposure, and possible precocious puberty. Lupron is a hormonal suppressant. It is used to treat many things, including slowing down prostate cancer, endometriosis, and uterine fibroids. I've also seen it used for menopause. One medically accepted use for it is to treat precocious puberty in children. There are clear diagnostic criteria and tests required for a diagnosis of precocious puberty. It's also used for chemical castration. It is not approved for the treatment of autism. In addition to that,
they're just this is COVID all over again. This is hydroxychloroquine all over again. It just, this idea, like, these people on the right, they can just say shit and people believe it. Yeah, this will treat it. Okay. And then when the studies come out that say it doesn't treat the condition, there's like, oh, that's just Big Pharma lying to you again. Wouldn't Big Pharma want to sell more drugs, by the way? Wouldn't they want their drugs to be able to treat literally everything so that they could sell more of it? Don't you think? But no, not in MAGA world, not in Maha world, not in RFK anti-vax world. In that world, we're just going to try everything but what the science says.
it also, as mentioned,
so they treat autism with gender-affirming care.
It's not recommended for people with seizure disorders. Autistic children are prone
That's going to piss off the conservatives. That's a good point.
To seizures. Another treatment they subjected their victims to was chelation. Chelation is meant to remove heavy metals from the body, which can also lead to fatal side effects. And he just so happened to prescribe rectal suppositories that are not FDA approved. Now, here's the thing. When I say he experimented on these children, I'm actually being generous. Because even someone conducting problematic and unapproved research would, you assume, document their results in some sort of reasonable way. After all, you can't prove anything with your research if you don't have the results to back it up. And not only did they often fail to conduct initial evaluations or properly record examinations, he would sometimes start treatment without any information about a patient's physical condition.
Just walk into the doctor. Doctor just starts treating you. Don't you want to find out what's ailing me first, doctor? No, I'm good. I'm just going to try some shit. That's David Geier. No, you're fine. We're just going to try some shit. We're going to start injecting you.
Cases, patients were subjected to treatment that he never...
Dallas says, not gender dysphoria. Did we just find a loophole to get the drugs these kids need? Maybe. This is FUBAR.
Physically examined. That is not experimenting with chemical castration. That is just straight up chemical castration. And those that he did examine, he either didn't examine them adequately or give them the correct tests. And for those who were partially tested, all but one didn't meet the criteria for even his profile for Lupron therapy, which again is not even an accepted profile. Oh, and it doesn't appear that they forgot to closely examine their bodies, if you catch my drift, despite not recording the medically relevant data from these examinations. Just things like a general observation on size. He did the I
don't know if you guys saw that, but like in the notes, it said patient was very well endowed. Thanks, Guy.
Unnecessarily and lying to the parents in their consent forms. With the lack of information gathering, he also had no way of knowing whether the treatment was effective or not. It almost seems like he didn't care if the patients got better or not. He just really enjoyed injecting them and forcing suppositories into them. His diagnoses were false. The frequent blood tests he ordered were often unnecessary.
Yeah, Doc got out the ruler. Doc was feeling a little insecure.
Necessary tests were never performed at all. We only know about these cases because of the scant medical records that the board was able to obtain. And by the way, their victims, these autistic children, were 9 years old, 6, 10, 3, 9, 7, 8, 9.5. Which, by the way, means that many of them were at an age where they could not be diagnosed with precocious puberty. And they were anyway. So, in summary, the man who is now in charge of solving autism and is creating a registry of every autistic person in the United States has a history of torturing and chemically castrating autistic children for, as far as I can tell, fun.
Let me just say this. I have a really close friend with an autistic child. The registry part, like that didn't really, like of all the stuff that I saw coming out, the part about the registry wasn't the part that really surprised me. And in fact, it really, to use the word, it didn't even really register to me. Like it wasn't even something that I was like, this part is really important. We went out last Wednesday or Thursday, and played some golf in the afternoon, and he was really struggling. So we wanted to go out and play some golf. And we didn't bring it up. We didn't talk about it for the first few holes. We were just talking about regular stuff. And then I don't remember how it brought up, but this was the part that made him snap. And I've never in my life seen him like that. He doesn't lose his cool. I've seen people try and fight him. He doesn't lose his cool. The only time I ever see him lose his cool is like if he's playing bad at golf, because he's an incredible golfer. But he snapped. And he was like, this motherfucker is going to put my kid on a list. And I don't know. I don't even know. Like, what's his plan with this fucking list? Is he gonna forcefully sterilize my child? Is he gonna try and institutionalize my child? Why the fuck does he need a list of everybody with autism? Why does he need that? That was the part that I just really didn't think about. I did not think about the list, but he told me that that's what he and the other parents in the groups that they're in, they have autistic children. That was the part for them that's alarming. And then I started thinking about, like, of course it is. Like my daughter's blonde. If somebody said we were making a registry of children with blonde hair, I'd be like, what the fuck are we doing here? I don't know. I don't want to be like scare tactic every day. But I do want to point out that this is how people feel. And this is what this administration does. They keep you living in a constant state of fear. For the Republicans that are here, what's your administration doing? Every day they tell you something you got to be fucking terrified of, so that you'll let them do what they want to do. It's not a healthy way for this country to live. I started this conversation today, just talking about like the division that's happening on the left right now, and I do think like it spills over, and we have to be aware of that. Donald Trump is a crazy person, and he makes people crazy because every day he wakes up and does something crazy. And then you can be one of two people. You can be the person who is watching it and go fuck and freak out and try and figure out what you're going to do about it, or you can be the person who ignores it. But if you're the person that ignores it and your worst fears come true, then you're the person who ignored it and let it happen. And so that's where we're at, perpetually anxious, perpetually in a state of fear. I definitely, I swear to God, like I've done this for 3 years. Every single day I do a live. The anxiety has ramped up ever since he took office. Like from day one, going into day one, because I remembered when Trump won in 2016, at the time I was a libertarian, so I was a big like Gary Johnson fan, and I used to have my own personal social media that's been gone for years, but I do remember like we'd argued back and forth with my friends and family, and Trump won, and I said something along the lines of like, you know what, like Trump said this was all going to be rhetoric, that like once he was in office he was going to be so diplomatic and he was going to be this great leader, and I'm willing to give him a chance. And it did seem like in that first administration, like even his on Inauguration Day, the speech was divisive, but it was less divisive. And for the first couple of weeks, it was like, all right, maybe he's going to try. And I do think he did. I think there were people around him that were like, here's how you be diplomatic. And he's like, all right, cool, I'm going to be diplomatic. And then at some point, he was just like, back to default. And that's where we're at. So this administration, it was like day one was what the fuck. Day one, we just started writing executive orders. We just started stripping away rights. We're just going after the Constitution with executive orders, which is crazy. I covered it on Thursday before we left, but Donald Trump used to say like only a weak president will legislate through executive orders. He has the House, he has the Senate, and the executive branch, and they're not even trying to pass legislation. The whole right wing has just become people who are okay with Donald Trump making every fucking decision, every last one of them. They're not legislating anything. They're just holding hearing after hearing after hearing about how unfair Joe Biden was and how unfair it was that Donald Trump was prosecuted. And then there's like, that's fine. He's doing all the legislating up there. He's just writing it in executive orders, and we're just going to stay out of the way. And like at best, they're just like, oh, we don't really want to be complicit, so we're not going to, but we're going to stand off to the side. We're not going to stop it, but we'll be complicit. This guy's done 30 things, 50 things already that he could have been impeached for. Already. And we have Hakeem Jeffries sitting on doing a sit-in now, and we can't impeach him because we can't get Republicans to jump on board with impeachment.